this is nice because this will actually...
So during the last couple of years, the City Council has been looking at ways to fund street improvements. The funds that the city receives through Act 51 is not enough to fund regular maintenance, including winter maintenance and improvements to the streets. Most of the city's major streets are in good condition because of they are federal aid eligible. We've received several grants to improve those streets. However, local streets and subdivisions are not eligible for federal aid, and as stated previously, the Act 51 funds are not sufficient to pay for winter maintenance, routine maintenance, and improvements to streets. A few years ago, the state legislature enacted some new legislation that provides more funds for roads or streets. However, the first few years of that additional revenue will go to pay off Michigan Department of Transportation debt, which were bonds that were incurred many years ago. I believe some of them actually were incurred as far back as during the Engler administration. For example, the City of Fenton's additional revenue is projected to be an additional $500,000 by 2021. And that's from a spreadsheet that's provided by the Bureau of Finance and Administration. And that's when those bonds will be paid off. So when they're paid off in 2021, we'll receive an additional $500,000 in revenue. Until then, the increase really is marginal. The city's engineers have conducted a road study, and from the information they have gathered, the engineers have determined that in order for the city's streets system to show an acceptable improvement, the city needs to spend approximately $2 million a year on improvements. The study indicates that the additional $500,000 the city will receive in 2021, providing that projection by the Bureau of Finance and Administration is accurate. That amount is really not adequate to fund the improvements that are needed. If that projection is accurate, the city will need an additional $1.5 million per year for the road improvements. The only way the city has to raise revenue is through a millage. Based on the information from the city treasurer, it would take approximately 4.75 mils to raise $1.5 million for roads. So a street program needs to last for an extended period of time in order to be effective. The city charter does not currently allow a special millage like a road millage to last for more than 3 years. Last November, the City Council placed a charter amendment on the ballot to extend the length of time for a special millage for up to 10 years, and the amendment failed. The city attorney has been in conversations with the Michigan State Attorney General's office to discuss another amendment to the city charter. The proposal would be in two separate ballot proposals. One would be to amend the charter to allow a special millage specifically for road and street improvements for up to 10 years. The next ballot proposal would set a millage for street and road improvements. The number currently placed on the millage is 5 mils, but could be changed depending on the discussion tonight. The city attorney is here at the council meeting to discuss the issue and answer any questions. In order for these proposals to be on the November ballot, the proposal has to be approved by the City Council by August 13th, 2018. And I would urge the City Council to approve the language at tonight's meeting if you're comfortable with that.
Sheree.
Okay, we'll have two ballot issues, correct? Two separate
Correct.
issues.
Yeah, so you'll have the charter amendment proposal, which will amend, we have that 3-year limitation, so then we
Right.
put a proviso clause in there to say that it'd be 10 years for road and streets. And then the second question is the actual millage for the road and streets. That question is tie-barred to the charter amendment. So two separate questions, and if the charter amendment would not pass, then the millage would fail, since they'd be tie-barred together.
That was where I was going with that. Thank you.
So why are we doing them as two separate items? We originally discussed doing them as one, since they're tie-barred together anyways.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. So if you remember what we did last year what we did is we proposed changing the 3-year limitation to 10 years. And it was going to be 10 years, and it could be for any millage, right? And then that failed, and there's a limitation in the Home Rule Cities Act that you cannot propose a same revision to the charter within 2 years. It has to be a substantially different revision. So the concern with the AG's office is if we proposed it as a single question and we put the millage increase in with also changing the 10 years, they felt that it was more appropriate under the way that you construe the Home Rule Cities Act to separate those questions due to the fact that we had raised the question and it had been turned down last year. Their concern was it could look like you're attempting to avoid having that 10-year question addressed by now adding in additional information, the 5-year millage. So for their office to approve it under the Home Rule Cities Act, they wanted those 2 questions pulled apart.
Couldn't we make it sufficiently different by making it specific to this millage?
Well, so what I explored with them was 2 potential ways to try to distinguish from the previous one, which was to add in the language about the road and streets, so we're not talking about just 10 years in general, but the road and streets, and then also to somehow incorporate the 5-year millage as the 10-year extension, but nothing else. And they were reluctant to do so. And so as I was talking to the city manager, we have to get their approval basically for it to be a proper question. So it's something that, you know, we had to work with them for something they were going to be complicit with agreeing with. So ultimately, to get it to work this way, we had to divide it into 2 questions.
So if either one fails, the whole thing fails?
No, so the charter amendment could pass and the millage could go down, and you then have the charter amendment in place no longer with that 10-year restriction on roads and streets, which means you don't have the same limitation, that 2-year limitation on millages. So you could potentially propose a new millage question at a sooner, election, I suppose. But if the charter amendment doesn't pass, then the city doesn't have authority to levy the millage, therefore the millage has to be tied barred to the charter amendment.
So
Thank you.
it's always difficult to deal with 2 separate amendments or 2 separate questions because everyone gets confused by that. So I guess if that's what the Attorney General's office is saying, and certainly we respect that to some degree, that it's probably the best thing that we can do is a communication plan, which is to communicate the information correctly about what you're voting on. That's always the tough thing, I think, that we've dealt with in the past. So it looks like you've thoroughly researched it. That's your recommendation. It would be 2 particular questions on the ballot.
Yeah, so, and 2 things to add, we actually submitted 5 different versions to them to attempt to get a single question to go. So it's not like they told us no, and so we tried to play around with the single question multiple times, and their office wasn't comfortable without separating them. You could get a single question, but you would just have to wait out the 2-year limitation. So this November would be 1 year, so you would wait out the next year, then you could combine it into a single question. So
the real issue is that when we attempted to amend the charter at the last one, it was for this very purpose that you're never really sure what millage you're going to ask for. But because we're limited to 3 mills, it would have been very, very costly. To put on 5 mills or 4 mills. I mean, you had to go so high to get all that money captured in 3 years. We would never been able to do it. That was
We would have
always
been triple.
that was the complex issue. So now we have the ability to at least amend the charter and get that through. But it really is going to be a challenging communication problem.
I'm thinking, the high schools, the PED grant, the PED grant money. I'm thinking maybe we need to have them, I know Vanguard's gonna work with this, but I'm thinking that if the school could do a video, informative video, and then we could YouTube it, put it on the city website, but really pound that out there, and then get out and scour the neighborhoods and spread the word too. We've got to do something that's better communication.
The only problem we have to be really, really careful about, and I know Chris
Oh, I
can
know.
speak to that, is there are only certain things that elected officials on the council that's requesting the millage can do. And it's
That's right.
basically factual information.
Informative, not
Informative information.
persuasive.
It can't be anybody's go out and vote for it. It has to just be
Right.
information, correct?
Could we have coffees and, gatherings? Could we talk?
Well, we talked to several communities, and that's what the big issue was, is get an expert in communication that could possibly guide you through that process so that you could at least inform people, this is what you're voting on, this is what it's going to cost you, this is when it's going to be done, and these are the roads that are going to be completed in a certain time. And I think people really understand that we're never gonna get the money from the state of Michigan to do the roads in
Exactly. We
Fenton,
can't
Michigan. It's
depend
not
on
happening.
Lansing.
I mean, the $500,000 is a little bit of money, but it's also, the one subdivision we did 2 roads was $750,000.
Right.
So I think we've talked about this an awful lot. So I saw where Linden has just passed, and they're going for a millage in November also for roads. It's always tough to do it, but I think, in my opinion, we've talked about this for quite a long time, and the residents have come to us and said, what are you gonna do about the roads, and what's the solution? So
Right.
I appreciate, Chris, that you did a lot of work with the Attorney General's office on that. I know we all do. So.
Yeah, Lynn and I, or the city manager and I had spoken, we really believed that a single question was the best way to approach it, and so we looked at every angle to try to get there. And I should have 2 things. The drafts that Lynn just circulated have been updated based on some amendments that we made after these went out in the packet, specifically relating to the fact that the 5 mills, a portion of it will be shared or captured by the LDFA and the DDA, so that has to be included in the ballot language to be clear. And then the second part about that is that the road millage increase does currently have 5 mills in it. That's what we used as a placeholder. That's what, city staff is recommending, so that's what's in here, but, obviously that could be amended as necessary.
Tracy?
I've just been doing a lot of thinking about this since we got the packet, and I understand as elected officials, we can't be involved, and I know that there are many people that have come to these meetings and had their concerns.
Right.
Is there a way a community group gets established that can go out and be the voice and do the explanation? And the other thought I had was on the website, you know how they have mortgage calculators? You can have a
Uh-huh.
calculator
Sure.
out there to
That's a good
to
idea.
calculate what
That's a really good
Yeah,
idea.
actually, I've spoken to Vanguard about possibly putting in something like that on our website, because we can't advocate for the passing of the millage, but we can educate. In fact, I think we have a responsibility to do that.
I think it's
And I think we can put information like that on our website that allows
and let the
people.
paper know that it's on the website for people to
It's
go.
important for people to know, though, that the city operates on 10.73 mills.
Listen, yeah.
I mean, and the rest of this millage is going to the schools, the county, and
Well, there's a lot of
Some
different
people
tabs.
don't
A lot of
see that.
people-
It's
I
a
know.
tons of money.
My community college.
A couple of thoughts. And one, I mean, while it's fresh, the calculator is a great idea, but we have to be really cautious because we need to make sure that people understand that the millage is not taxed according to what their house is worth, but what the SEV.
Right.
And so maybe if we could link because all that information's available on the city website, you can find your taxable values on there. So we might want to include that with, otherwise people will be
Right.
taking a real estate appraisal as to what their house is worth and plugging it into that calculator.
Yeah.
And that could be real dangerous.
Yeah.
They need to have accurate information, not information that's untrue. Anyway, Chris, I appreciate everything you did with trying to get the ballot language down to one issue, but we can't. I think the 500,000 is a wonderful number that we may or may not get a third of the way into our 10-year plan. So that said, I mean, it's gonna be great when and if we get it, but our plan's a third of the way through. We need to have that plan funded at a full level rate from the beginning.
Right.
That said, I agree with the 5 mills instead of backing it down to 4.75 because frankly, that we need to improve the roads. Otherwise, I view it almost as a failure. We need to make the roads
Right.
better, not keep them at the same level. And once we do get that additional, if we do get the additional 500,000, we can always reduce the millage if we don't need that much.
Actually, the millage in addition to the $500,000 is what gets us to the 2 million that we need.
I thought the 5 mils got us to the 2 million a year mark.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
the
thought it was
five gets you
475
yeah.
got us to.
All right.
Yeah, 5 gets you to about 1.6.
Yeah.
1.6.
All right.
Mayor,
Well, the longer we wait to do it, too, the more costly it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
become. It's just, every city is going through this. It's not just the city of Fenton.
And so I think the public, I like that, it has embraced the fact that the longer you wait, the worse the roads get,
Right.
and the more costly it becomes.
Right.
And so we've been talking about it for a couple of years, so this, I agree with you, Scott, that it's time to move forward, leave it up to the public, because it's gonna have a very bad impact on our city if our neighborhood roads are deteriorating to the fact that we
Right.
can't fix them. But I also wondered if we could have just a brief discussion in response to Councilwoman Smith's comments about reaching out to the public. So would the intent be to have a subcommittee of the city council that could possibly work with our marketing people and our advertising people to put together some things that we can do, that we legally can do, in order to reach the public, and then put something out to the public through their advice on how we engage the public in helping us with this project. I mean, we still have to stick to the facts, which we would do, but we can't be going out door to door or doing any of that. But we can get the information
Right.
together. And we could sponsor some things here, there, and everywhere, if the attorney agrees with all that. So that's something I'd like us to at least think about, you know. put
Sporting
together.
events might be a good place to have like a little booth or table. Yeah, everybody goes to football games and.
Well, if you use the actual people that are gonna benefit from that,
Mhm.
which is all of us
Right.
and all the residents, then maybe that would be a good starting point. Because we only have 3 months.
Right.
We have 3 months to
Right.
educate, 8,000 voters that it's a benefit to everybody.
Is London putting theirs on the ballot this year, too?
Yes.
Okay,
They just passed it at meeting.
Okay.
Last week.
5 mils.
okay. Tracy?
Well, to kind of piggyback off of what Pat has just said, that maybe because September is 3 weeks away, that we develop a kind of a plan of action, so we're not kind of shooting buckshot out there, that we actually have plans of going to sporting events or having community involvement in various, going, just getting everything out there, not us personally, but the community.
Right.
So we have a plan of action.
Get a grassroots.
Could that be the role of a marketing committee?
Could we meet with them?
Sure. So the city council has the ability to, or the city has the ability to, like I said, put out information that's factual information. You have to be careful that you don't cross the line of advocating. So we can provide information to people, we can tell them what we're trying to accomplish, and the condition of the roads, we can talk about those types of issues. We can't ask them to vote for it, we can't campaign for them to vote for it, we can't advocate for the millage, but we can talk to different groups, provide them information, like for example, you go speak to Rotary, Lions Club, civic organizations, neighborhood groups, can do all those types of things and talk to them about, give them factual information regarding the proposal. What you can't do is ask them to vote for it, or suggest that they vote for it, or ask them to campaign for it. We can only provide information, educate, and it's up to, if there's another group out there that wants to come forward or step forward to advocate for it, that's completely up to them. I don't think we can actually even go out and recruit those folks. That's really up to some neighborhood association or groups to do. So we're very limited in what we can do without crossing the line of advocating.
But if we do nothing, we're in the same
Well, I'm not
boat.
suggesting we do nothing. What I'm
Right.
suggesting we do is do our best to educate people, provide factual information. We can actually include things like that in a newsletter or even in a mailing, but it has to be factual information and not advocacy. And so I would think that before we pass out any information or distribute any information, we'd have to run it through the city attorney to make sure
Right.
that we're not violating the campaign.
That's great.
How
to
did
hear.
Grand Lake pass theirs?
That very way.
Did they?
They use, you know, they use their city council, they split the list up of the civic and nonprofit groups, and they just went with them with a prepared plan, so you don't get off base and start talking down the road you're not supposed to. Because people want to know the facts, they just
Right.
really want to know.
Right.
What's it gonna do, how much is it gonna cost me? You know, when is it gonna be, when are my roads gonna be fixed, what's the schedule? And it is limited to 10 years, which is, you know, it's not gonna be a perpetual millage, it's limited to 10 years, and then, and how much money is it gonna raise? But, you know, there's so many groups that meet every week
I know,
in this community.
I know.
And we got a lot of us here that can do it. I have a question, can the administration participate in that? They can.
Yeah, the administration can participate in educating.
Okay.
We can't campaign either.
Right, but you can participate in
We
education.
can provide information and do presentations and that sort of
Okay.
thing. And I think staff would be completely willing to do that. We have to be careful that we don't cross the line on that too,
So
though.
we'll put you in charge of that.
That's fine.
To add to, Lynn commented on the presentation, but I was on the receiving end. I got invited to a meeting back before the August election involving a county project that they were campaigning for, and it was kind of a similar issue. It was about a facility that had degraded, and so they were asking for, I think, 5 or 7 mills to basically repair this facility. And so they put a slideshow together, and it was a staff member of that county administration building that was going around presenting to, that's how we saw it, was on the receiving end. And they had, 30 pictures of, showing the degradation and then where the money would go, how it would be implemented. And they basically went around, they divided up the group, and then they did those presentations to the groups that you're mentioning.
Did it pass?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people, honestly, I don't think, I mean, we can provide pictures, but I think most people can open up their front door and see them. They don't really need to
But the
see the
people in
pictures,
the
but they need
newer-
the information about the costs and funding.
Yeah,
The
I
cost,
think
and I
a
think
big
a lot
part of that is gonna be to let people understand how much revenue that the state has taken away from us over the past
Yes.
14 years. And that really, the amount of mills we're asking is replacement funds for what the state's taken away.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And I think the city right now has 42.5 something mills that,
Total property tax.
right, total property tax. And the city only has 10 mills of it. So I think that's important to point out because
Yeah.
everything else is going to the schools, the county, college. Now they're trying to even do a charter school in Flint on the Flint Institute of Arts or
Yeah,
something's
yeah,
probably,
right.
they
The
want us to
cultural
pay
center.
for it, right? It's like, oh my gosh, we need to fix our roads. So I think it's a good idea. Should we schedule a meeting with the Vanguard group and a
Well, I
special
think-
meeting?
Well, okay, so you don't have a lot of time between now
I
and
know.
when the ballot proposal is due.
So, and then just to add some pressure to that, so you've got 2 resolutions, but most specifically the charter. So even though we went through the AG's office, that they informally provide that process, so that once it's approved, we still have to go through a formal process where the AG reviews it. They have to provide a recommendation to the Attorney General, who then gives us a certified letter before it goes on. Yeah, so I've spoke with them, and if we get it, at least that part approved this evening, we'd be able to get them an electronic certified copy. They would accept that tonight, and then they would be able to start the process, and hopefully we could get it completed by the end of this week, so that it would already be certified by the time it's forwarded to the county clerk. Not quite the same issue presented with the actual millage, which could be approved on the 13th and then provided.
Okay,
Okay, so we need to approve these two resolutions tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have a number. Could you? Thank you, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Checking, I just have a question and thought. With regard to, like, we did the community, in the spring, we did, could we do one on it? Could we do an informative one? Or are we kind of crossing the line?
No, we could do several of those.
Like the town hall at the
Absolutely.
community center? Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
The more
We just have to be careful that during the presentation, we're not asking anybody to vote for it or advocate, we're just providing.
But we could have an informative
Yes.
evening at the community center for open to the public, like we did.
Right, and so I think if we get all those thoughts together about what everybody thinks is the best way to do it, and then start scheduling all this, but we do have to have something that everybody
Right.
sticks to the schedule, sticks to the
Right.
routine. This is the information you can do, so you don't get trapped by saying something you don't really know that much about.
A
So-
fact sheet.
Swartz Creek's passed theirs too, didn't they?
Not the
And
first
they
time,
have
but
5
did the second
mills?
time. I think they actually have more, and I think theirs is, I could be wrong, but I believe theirs is
7.
6.
Brighton is up for 1, 2, and they're going for, is it 7?
Who?
Brighton?
Yeah, Brighton actually, they have a charter limit of 20 mills. They levy about 15 mills for general fund. It might be 14 point something, but, so what they're asking their voters to do is to go, is to remove the Headley cap and go up to 20 mills. And they're going to, my understanding is that they're going to dedicate that additional millage that they would collect for roads.
Roads.
The entire,
Pardon me?
the entire,
The entire increase, right?
Wow.
But they have a charter millage of 20, ours is only 13, which we are only able to levy a little over 10. They're currently levying, I think, a little over 14 right now for their general fund.
Gee, even if we had 14 mills, we could do something.
In small cities, Swartz Creek's always bragging how well this plan is working for them and how the roads are in great shape and really the millage and basically going the same route that we did with the Pacer ratings and determining the millage needed to do the road projects, and it's working out great for them.
Okay, I do have numbers now, thank you, Sue. The first one, the resolution to adopt the road millage increase proposal is resolution number 11. And the resolution to approve charter amendments land ballot language for the charter amendment number 1 is resolution number 12.
So before we vote on it, do that, can we talk more about the dollar amount? Because I had really serious concerns that we're gambling on getting $500,000 a year that we're never gonna see.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what's scary.
they raised gas tax, we didn't see any of that money. Every time we hear we're gonna get money, they end up
Right.
taking money from us. So I've said this for the last year, if we end up with a millage, and we're not realistically, we can't go get a 7 mil thing. But if we end up with a millage that's too low, it doesn't matter if we get 90% of the streets done, it's still gonna be a failure, right? The community is still going to feel it's a failure. So do we know what the number is that, without that $500,000, whatever the amount
I
is?
thought we talked about 5.
5 doesn't include the $500,000.
That doesn't include the half. To get the half, I can calculate it out. Give me just a minute here.
Because we can always reduce our millage. We can always, the $500,000 shows up, we can knock it back down.
On top of that, the 5 mills would be 3 years without that
Right.
$500,000.
Yeah.
So we're 3
So
years
that's
into a
$1.5 million
10-year
short.
program. That's, yeah, $1.5 million
That's
short.
$1.5 million.
So to get $2 million, the millage would have to be 6.3.
Give it to you, mine.
And I think we have to focus on what's doable.
Right.
I really don't, I think asking for 6 or 6.3 is probably more than what people would be willing to pay, even to have good streets.
Well, and then I guess part of our education program needs to be contact your legislators in the state and let hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Because,
Well,
you know, we were saying it'd be $1.5 million short, and that's not really accurate either, because there's a graduated scale every year to get us to that 500,000,
Yeah,
correct?
but at 2021, the total increase though is 500,000.
In
That's not
2020.
500,000 plus all the others.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying, is a gradual increase, so in,
Right.
what was it? Yeah, 60, change my glasses. So you've, anyway, yeah, you get 406,000, and anyway, it's gradual to get there, so we wouldn't be completely $1.5 million short. It'd probably be closer to 800, 900,000 short if we don't get the full increase, but still, it's substantial. I have the same concerns as Councilman McDermott, but,
Well, my concern is really we're trusting the state,
yeah.
and they've yet to not just take money away, right? I get they're in a situation where they have to pay bonds, and I understand that, My concern is
So
we're
let's talk about
gambling
why
on-
they have to pay the bonds though.
What's
Why
that?
they have to pay the bonds is because this gas tax issue has not been something that just started over the last few years.
No.
It's something that's been discussed for 30 years, 25, 30 years. And they weren't willing to do that before, and that's why they ended up borrowing money to give to people for loans. And so now, the bills coming due, and that's why they had to do something different. And so the first few years is going to pay for the debt. I mean, this can's been kicked down the road by the legislature for a number of years. And they've
25,
never-
30 years it
They have
has.
never really found or been willing to approve a solution to the problem. This isn't something that happened overnight. I mean, the roads did not get in this condition. It's not just our roads. If you take a look at the roads across the state, and I'm talking about state roads as well, they all need work. We've had, actually, the bridge overpass on Silver Lake Road, the 23 overpass there, we've had chunks of concrete that have fallen off of that bridge. And a few years ago, we had a large chunk of concrete, big piece of concrete fall off the bridge, and we called MDOT to talk to them about it. And they really, what was the response, Dan?
Not much.
Yeah, they were real excited about it, and it was something that I guess they're kind of gotten used to. And I did see them out this year inspecting that bridge, among other bridges out in that area. So maybe they're looking at maybe doing something with it, but that was 2 or 3 years ago that actually happened. So this problem has been going on for a long time, and without a solution. And so I'm not gonna tell you that what they projected is gonna come true or not. There will be an increase, whether it will become the amount of dollars that they told us it will be, I don't know. Part of the problem with gas taxes is that cars are getting better gas mileage. You have electric cars now. And I think $51 comes from the gas tax.
I can remember 30 years ago when my husband worked for the League and they were going to all of the editorial boards, the Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, every place throughout the state of Michigan to increase gas tax, and they all turned their back on it, every one of them. So it's just something that they've neglected for a long time. And if we keep waiting for them to do something, we'll never have roads. I swear, that's the truth. I don't want to pay the money any more than anybody else, but it's like, we don't do something, we're gonna be, the amount of damage it causes to tires and the cars, it's just, it's too much. I mean, they've got to do something, or we have to do something.
So my question is, I think we're all in agreement this is the right thing to do for the city, and that most cities now are getting it. the only way you're ever gonna get anything done in your community is if you do it yourself. You cannot depend on the state of Michigan to pick up and or to give you those dollars. So depending on what happens in the future, at any time, if things change and there's more additional revenue sharing that's come back to us, or any money that comes back just for the roads, we can also at any time stop the millage. And so, when you say that you're concerned that, you know, it could be a failure, I guess I look at it that for years we've done nothing. So if we don't start doing something right now, at least we're kind of like beginning the process. And if the state turns around in 3 or 4 years and decides that these communities need this money, these roads need to, because it's going to have an economic impact on the whole state, and things change, I just want to make sure that we know that if we reach that point, it's, you know, it's like we can stop it at any time.
Or reduce it,
Correct? Okay.
and then what the dollar amount is.
Respectfully, no, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I mean, we may get this money, but I don't think, you know.
No, I'm just.
There's no magic solution
There is
for
no
anybody,
magic
right? I
solution.
mean, we have,
It's just that the longer you
you gotta pay
wait,
for what you use,
yeah, the
right?
longer you wait, as the mayor said, the costs are gonna go up for all those types of repairs and all those road constructions, and those contracts are gonna get higher. And then the costs are gonna be passed on to the residents.
Right.
And that's all of us. So I think that we should start moving on it, and I think that if we get a really good, solid communication plan, that people will accept that.
I think so too. So are we asking for 5 mils, just to clarify? I think so too. Should I get a consensus, Sheree?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Yes. Nancy?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, personally, I would vote for the millage we need, but I get that we're not gonna be able to sell that, and I'm disappointed, but, yeah.
Right. Okay, let's go to resolution. You have them in front of you. Number 11, the resolution to adopt road millage increase proposal. And let's,
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-11.
Support. There's been a motion and a support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lockwood,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Botticelli,
Yes.
Graves,
Yes.
Grossmeyer.
Yes.
All right, now let's do resolution number 2018-12.
I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2018-12.
Support?
There's been a motion and a support. Roll call, please.
McDermott,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Botticelli,
Yes.
Graves,
Yes.
Grossmeyer,
Yes.
Lockwood.
Yes.